In this segment, I want to look a little bit about how to get good results, illustrations of your results out of Ansys Workbench after conducting your analysis. So there are a couple of key tricks here. One, let's look at the options that you see when you look at a figure. We see here it all looks black. If I zoom in, what we're going to see is that's because my mesh is being shown. And we currently have the contours also. We had a different way of showing contours. I can turn off the show elements option here, and I could just show my surface with the undeformed wireframe, which is nice to use as a reference. Now I can see the colors. There are different ways of doing the colors. We have smooth contours, contour bands, where we see discrete regions. We could also see the ISO lines, which is what I had showing when I first showed up. Typically, the most common way, I like to see these contour bands. Sometimes we see some sharp edges in here, as seen in this edge. It kind of helps tell me I don't have things well resolved because of how they smooth it out. So I like to see that rather than going to the smooth contours, which can hide some things I may want to see. So I like to do the contour bands. I like the undeformed as a reference. Okay, so that's one factor. The other thing we want to look at is how do I get some results and quantify some things in there. So I have here, I can show my maximum, I can show my minimum, I can also probe it, which means as I click on there, it'll show results. So I could look at particular regions of interest. For example, if I want to look right around this hole, I could select on there, and I could get a probe value. And it's going to plot the value of whatever I'm plotting. So in this case, my von Mises or equivalent stress. Other options, if we notice, if we right-click here, we could display local maxes. So that could help affect other regions of interest in there. So there's some local maximums here. It catches the local maximum by the hole, but it did a better job of finding the peak than when I just clicked on it. You can see that has some higher values. So those things could be helpful to be able to plot. Now, if I decide I don't want to look at those, I can come down here in my graphics annotations tab. Notice I could have a few different tabs down here. If I go to graphics annotations, I could select these, right click, and delete. Right? So I removed those if I don't want to display them. Other things that would be helpful is the scale. You notice this is an auto scale. In this case, often it's going to amplify it. In this case, it's actually decreasing it. It could be helpful if I want to see the shape to auto scale it, but it can also be harmful if I could either underestimate or overestimate. And so you always at least want to take a look at the true scale. In this case, my deflections appear to be quite large, enough that it might be a concern. And as we saw before, if we look at our messages here, we have warnings that the deformation is large as well. Okay. Now, I've got the view. I could see things in here. Another thing you could do is if I want to change, I could change the range of this. If I want to see more detail, I could do 3e to the 8th. So I could do 3e to the 8th. So now more of it's going to look blue, but I could see more of what's happening in the region of interest. And maybe I want to move this up to 5e to the 8th. And again, I just clicked on that to be able to see. And so it really helps highlight where the stresses are. Though again, it can be deceptive if I think it's linear. So I can put that back to my automatic value if I want. Other things I might be able to do here is change the scale. Digits, it really doesn't make sense to be showing 5 digits on this. 3 is plenty of digits. So that also helps clean up my results. And you may generally find you can do things that add more. You could you edit the values, change a whole variety of things. Go, whether it's in scientific notation or whether it's a logarithmic scale, etc. Now, when I'm saving these, though, I have these tools, but I may also want to be able to see and hold a particular view that's going to be useful. So if, for example, here I want to see these stresses on the underside, I could zoom in here. So if I come up here and I have this clicked up under images, I could set insert figure. I could save out a specific image, but I'll save it once, and if I rerun my analysis, I change the mesh, it's not there, I'd have to reorient it again. So I could create a figure, and this figure is going to remember a particular orientation. Now I could rename this and say bottom base. Right? I could select this again. I could insert another figure and say, okay, well, I want this one to be top. Right? So I could rotate this so I could see this top view. And save that. And I could also come, for example, and insert a figure here that I could rename and call it boundary conditions. So, and this one I may want to zoom out a little bit so I could see the highlighted surfaces. Now I can kind of see that surface in these two, and you can see the definitions over there on the right. Now, one of the nice things that this does for me is that I can come, if I go to the Home tab, there's an opportunity for report preview. So I could click on that, and it's going to generate an HTML summary of the part. So it has the general summary. If I pan down through here, it's telling me all about my parameters that I might. So this could be a good way to document the analysis settings, find parameters without clicking through everything. Though it is, to be honest, it could be a little bit hard to dig through some of this too if you're not really familiar with it. But if we keep scrolling down here, we see that I have my boundary conditions figure saved there. Now, the resolution isn't real great. But it does save it, and it holds that orientation. And I could come down here, and I could see, okay, there's my bottom base, top. You can see that I might want to go back because those overlap a little bit. So I could come back to the geometry view and maybe move that over a little bit. Top, move that over a little bit, and then now notice they're still in the same place here. I need to come up here and generate report again. So now I can come back down here. And now these look a little bit better. So I have a file. I could save the picture as, again, the resolution's not real great this way. I think you may be better coming back to the geometry, looking at this, and doing image to file. I haven't checked to see if the resolution's better, but this is that you could export this to a file format. So I put my Mises stress, top, base, and I'd have a PNG file of those results. So those will help you be able to export more results, be able to save your images. So for example, here again we could see this in two different views and have it saved so that it pops up each time as I edit it. They could be consistent from part to part. And remember to look for the geometry, and then once you've generate a report, you'll have this report preview. We talked about the generate. You can also export it to Word or PowerPoint, print it, and there's some options to change the font size. Let's look at that. So that's one way to help make the text more readable. So, hey, well, hopefully that's helpful in being able to get better results, images out of your FEA analysis.